Sometimes hitmen just gotta sit back and enjoy the life. That's what I think. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's Netflix original movie review of Hitman, the newest film from director Richard Linklater. So here we have a movie about a hitman. Well, not exactly. This is not a film about a hitman. It's about an individual who basically moonlights, who's a professor who moonlights as a detective, who ends up becoming a guy capturing people trying to put out hits on their family or relatives or loved ones, and ends up becoming kind of infatuated and falls in love with this woman who wants her husband killed. And so in the process, not only is he doing this double life of claiming to be a hitman, but he's also having to deal with the New Orleans Police Department as well as a professor at a school. And in the process of everything, he is trying to keep everything in check. And as we know in a Richard Linklater film, similar to something like Bernie, things will not necessarily go as planned, but that is the purpose of a film like this, which is based on a true story of Gary Johnson. So Hitman's a film I've been really looking forward to for quite a while, ever since it premiered, I think at Venice or something like that. So Richard Linklater is a director that has done some really interesting films in his career. He's very talented. He's very multi-dimensional when it comes to his directorial efforts. And what I mean by that is he's a director that could do something like the Before trilogy, Sunrise, Sunset, and stuff like that. Or he could go into more populist territory with, School of Rock and so on and so forth. And then he does stuff like Bernie, which is really off the wall, offbeat and stuff like that. He did Bad News Bears and all that good stuff. So a movie like Hitman is something that is not surprising from Richard Linklater. He's worked with Glen Powell before. Glen Powell and Richard Linklater are, of course, co-writers, as well as the guy who wrote the story. And it's a movie that I heard a lot of great things about. It's an Oscar contender. It's a movie that is just a lot of fun. Now, with that said, my official opinion on this film is going to be something interesting, because what I thought this film was going to be is nothing at all what I end up watching. And for my honest review of that movie, that's perfectly all right, because this movie's awesome. It really is. It's a fantastic character piece. It hyper realizes a true story, which is actually very interesting to hear about to begin with, and gives us a great lead performance and shows us that Glen Powell is a true A-list actor doing some really amazing, interesting stuff. This is a guy who he's been around acting for quite a while. He's worked with Richard Linklater in quite a few films, but ever since Top Gun Maverick, and maybe I guess everybody wants something I guess you could talk about, he's a guy that's starting to slowly build a career that is going to be a very interesting one. He's a guy that doesn't want to do Marvel movies. He's a guy that doesn't want to do Oscar bait, but he's a guy that has a filmography that is a really fascinating one, whether it be Twisters coming up or whether it be Anyone But You. Like I said, Top Gun Maverick, he is a star in the making, and it's going to be interesting to see how his career pans out, whether he continues down this indie route or whether he continues down the big budget route. It's a very cool thing to watch. But with that said, I really enjoy it. This is a really interesting, really offbeat movie, but it's similar to something like Bernie, where the characters they're relatable in a lot of ways, but they're also well written. They're also well developed. This character of Gary Johnson and his many forms when he turns into different characters to kind of catch the people wanting hits on people. He goes into details about hitmen and not being really real. The idea of hitmen is more of a fantastical approach in a lot of respects. But it's a movie that really attempts to be funny, but also darkly funny. It's a movie that attempts to have heart, and it does it really well. It's a movie that, though I think the language, the cursing and stuff like that gets a little out of control, I think it does it with, it's very irreverent in a lot of respects, and I really appreciate that. I think the heart of this movie is Gary Johnson and his kind of path to where he starts out as this nerdish, bookish guy to where he kind of becomes a Jekyll and Hyde type of situation to where he eventually concludes. But, watching Glen Powell just kind of go at it, just be willing to do whatever it takes to kind of succeed in the role, whether it looked like Tilda Swinton, whether it looked like Patrick Bateman, whether it looked like, some guy from Romania. It's pretty incredible to watch what Glen Powell is doing in this movie. And it doesn't hurt that he has a great cast of characters. Retta, who plays one of the police officers, Mike Markoff, Austin Amelio, Sanjay. It's not your atypical cast for a Richard Linklater film, but I think they're all fantastic as side characters. The most fun you're having is Austin Amelia, who plays Jasper, who's a corrupt cop, and you see how his transition about he was the big guy, the guy that did everything, to what Glen Powell is doing in this movie. It's fantastic to watch because you see Jasper kind of starting to put the pieces together and what truly is happening with Gary Johnson's character, who is moonlighting as Ron when he meets the Adria Arjona, I'm sorry, who is this woman who is in an abusive relationship. She tries to hire Glenn Johnson's character, or Gary Johnson and Glen Powell's character, who's playing Ron, and he kind of convinces her not to, and then she becomes the love interest in this movie. And I think this movie could get into some really kind of samey territory, but it doesn't. It actually takes the tropes of a love story, like a comedic, dramatic story, and really plays it very, very well. Adria Arjona, I think is how you pronounce her name, does a really nice job of being like the damsel in distress type character, or being the love interest type character, and they put a nice little spin on it. And they how, even though the character she plays is not a real individual, it really fits well into this universe as somebody that Gary Johnson, who's known for up to 70 arrests or whatever it was. It's a pretty crazy statistic to give this kind of hyper realized Hollywoodized performance, and then add in this female character that does some really interesting stuff throughout the film. It makes the film work on its own right. It's a really fun kind of dynamic, and they have great chemistry together. And like I said, this is probably one of the most R-rated films that Richard Linklater's ever done. So once again, you'll see some sex scenes, and you'll see some some violence and stuff like that, but it's not like offensive or anyway. I think the use of the F word is a little bit offensive in this movie, but that's just here or there. I'm not offended by the F word. I'm just saying it uses it a lot. It's almost Quentin Tarantino-esque, but it's not like, it is what it is. It is what it is. But Hitman is a film that really takes its time to kind of eke into you, whether it be the narration that Glen Powell is doing, kind of similar to like what The Killer did, where he's getting into the nuts and bolts of what his job is, who he is, how he acts, and where he goes. It goes into some really interesting details about how he researches the people that are trying to get the job, or trying to get the hit jobs and stuff like that. And then I love the individual characters in this movie, the individual just like small pieces of characters who want the hit jobs, and then watch kind of how slowly Richard Linklater and his editor and so on and so forth kind of play that out, where somebody will get Glen Powell's character of Gary Johnson in there dressed as like whatever crazy individual, and then the next thing you know, they're against like the thing where you take a picture if you're being under arrest and stuff like that. And it's stuff like that that really just shows that Richard Linklater is a very interesting director. He's not a Wes Anderson or even a Kevin Smith in a lot of respects. He makes very down-to-earth, very kind of low-budgety films that have a very kind of earthly presence to them. You look at Boyhood, or you look at, School of Rock. It's not showy. It's not out there, boom, bang, bang, or whatever. It's just a very centered, focal kind of character piece, and that's great. This movie is very similar to Bernie, where it's very offbeat and very dark and very sinister, but also is very, very funny and very humorous and has very quirky characters, and I love that. I love everything about that. I think it's a great little film that I was not expecting anything. I mean, I was expecting one thing and I ended up getting another thing. I was expecting an actual movie about a hitman, but it actually goes past those tropes and actually makes fun of those tropes and gives us a story about a man who moonlights for the PD, the New Orleans Police Department, which is interesting because most of Richard Linklater's films take place in Texas. But he moonlights as a police officer, and then he becomes a fake hitman and then falls in love with a woman. It's pretty great. I really love it. So Hitman, one of the great films of the year, to be fairly honest. I know it came out technically last year, but it's releasing this year. I think it's worth a watch. I think you'll enjoy it. It's not for everyone. It's very quirky, but I definitely think it's a great little film. So overall, another win for Richard Linklater, and that is my take on Netflix's Hitman. Now, in limited release, will be on Netflix very, very soon. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. In the comments below, what is your favorite Richard Linklater film? Have you seen Hitman? Tell me what you think overall. Otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell, top the fun that's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.